Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this situation where President Biden was kind of goaded into saying Laken Riley's name, sort of. He actually said Lincoln Riley.
It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal.
During the course of the State of the Union, and during him mentioning that, he mentioned the fact that Laken Riley's accused killer, or Lincoln Riley, again, according to President Biden, was in fact an illegal immigrant.
Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals?
Now, many people have improperly said that Biden took it a step further and he talked about the thousands that were killed by illegals, as in illegal immigrants. However, I believe the remainder of what he said was actually how many thousands are killed by legals in this country. And that kind of attitude right there in that moment led to the obvious consequences of that, which were the Democratic Party criticizing Joe Biden because how dare he call somebody who is a murderer illegal. That's just dehumanizing and ridiculous. And now we're gotten to the point where Joseph R. Biden has decided to apologize to the accused murderer, the likely murderer. We haven't seen him be convicted yet, but I'm assuming that this is the guy because he hurt the feelings of the illegal immigrant accused of murdering Laken Riley. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
And yes, on April 27th, I will be at the Vulcan Gas Company in Austin, Texas, doing the Minds Fest thing. Get your tickets, link in the description.
Just the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock.
So right here we have this clip which says it's an exclusive interview with Joseph R. Biden, the President of the United States, and the reason why this is absolutely crucial is because Joe Biden has given less interviews to the press than almost any other president in modern history. In fact, earlier this year, during the course of the Super Bowl, where the president often will do a Super Bowl interview, but definitely during an election year, President Joe Biden decided that he wasn't going to do that, and instead they had like a ridiculous TikTok video where he talked about the cookies. It was absurd, ridiculous, and insane. So this is a guy who shies away from the press on multiple different occasions. Now, you could say that maybe the interview is supposed to be a follow-up to his State of the Union. He gave his big speech and all of that. You have the song and dance, the pomp and circumstances. However, it seems like, at least from this clip that is uploaded to the MSNBC YouTube channel, that this is to address the criticism that he received from fellow Democrats for criticizing somebody who murdered an American citizen.
Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
Now, you should have said undocumented, but that's not a big thing, okay? What's the big thing about
it? No, I actually wasn't even going to ask about that. I was just going to ask more about the moment. But you do think that he should have said undocumented? That wasn't going to be my question.
Well, we usually say undocumented.
Now, to be clear, we did a whole video on Laken Riley and how she should be alive. We talked about how her killer, or her accused killer, to be technically accurate at this moment in time, entered the country in September of 2022, was detained by Border Patrol, and then, as per Joe Biden's policy, was paroled into this nation. He ended up going to New York City. He was arrested for child endangerment, riding with his kid on a moped without a helmet.
But in an interview with the New York Post, Ibarra's wife says that before their immigration hearing, Jose was arrested for riding a moped with their 5-year-old son while doing food deliveries. Neither were wearing a helmet. At that point, ICE could have taken Jose into custody, but it says he was released before that could happen.
And he was released without bail because that's what happens in New York City. Although I said in that video, and I will say it here, if you were arrested for riding on a moped with your child and your child didn't have a helmet, the idea that even before bail reform that you would get any bail or a hefty bail is probably not the case. But more interestingly, he actually ended up in Athens, Georgia with his brother, who was also arrested arrested for multiple different DUIs.
Wasn't done, but Jose's brother had been arrested the month before on a DUI charge.
However, he was not deported as well. And by the way, he left New York because there was a detainer issued for New York City, and of course they didn't hold him for that detainer. In fact, I think they released him before that detainer went into effect, but then he was arrested in Athens, Georgia for shoplifting with his brother, who again already had multiple crimes. However, they never took him to booking, so they didn't process him properly.
After his release, Jose headed to Athens, where his brother was now living. He was only here for about a month when they were both accused of shoplifting from Walmart. According to the police report, the two allegedly stole food and clothes. They were given a citation and let go. A spokesperson with the Athens Clarke County Police told me immigration status is handled during the booking process at the jail. And since they weren't arrested, that check wasn't done.
And because this guy, even in our current lax immigration system, was on the cusp of being deported, ICE wanted to detain him. This was on the Athens, Georgia government for not booking this person, not turning him over to ICE, and not having him be deported. And by the way, the mayor of Athens, Georgia, completely excuses this. In fact, he also defended the illegal, and when people come out against him to complain about it, he says, listen, Trump's an evil white racist. Back in 2019, he was such an evil white racist that we had to protect the migrant, and if you shout out against him, get out of the room during the press conference, you lowly citizen, because we're all about embracing the illegal.
Is the expectation of human dignity. While 2019 was not that long ago, you might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing in places like Charlottesville.
This is an invasion! When I was younger, I was a criminal. And you know what I thought about doing? Crossing the border to Mexico to get away from my crimes.
Son, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Jesus Christ. He saved me.
So already, and I mean already, the strategy of the Democratic Party is to call you a racist for daring to bring up the fact that this person, who should have never been in this country in the first place, who committed multiple crimes after illegally entering this country and should have been deported, was available and ready to kill Laken Riley. And by the way, the media has participated in this strategy as well. The Associated Press put out an article that talked about how the real issue with the Laken Riley murder was the fact that women exercising alone, just horribly dangerous. No mention of immigration status in that original Associated Press article, because why would we mention the fact that the killer shouldn't have been here in the first place? Why not just chastise women for jogging near their university? Because how dare those women even think about trying to exercise, am I right?
But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented.
The Democrats are a parody of themselves. Let's be clear. The fact of the matter is, you have an American citizen who is murdered, a complete innocent, by somebody who should have never entered this nation in the first place. And the issue that they have with this particular situation is not the murder itself, is not the border policy, is not Joseph Biden campaigning on migrants surging to the border.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
And living up to that policy, by the way, it's the fact that Joe Biden, when it was brought to his attention and when he started to get heckled during the State of the Union, used a no-no word. He didn't refer to the murderer how he identified, which was, of course, as undocumented, not illegal. I mean, why would we call this person who illegally entered the country an illegal immigrant? I mean, according to law, they are actually quite literally defined as illegal aliens under law. Again, that's the legal term, but why would we ever refer to them in in the way that they're actually referred to in law, when we can use a much softer piece of language to describe this person, because we have to be undeniably respectful to the person who entered our country illegally and murdered one of our citizens who never should have been here in the first place and violated multiple other laws in the lead up to this, and also had a criminal brother that entered illegally who, by the way, also violated a bunch of other laws. On top of that, this guy was an immigration fraudster. He got married to his wife, according to his wife, to seem more sympathetic to the asylum courts because, of course, they were economic migrants claiming asylum status fraudulently. But here we have the President of the United States apologizing, groveling after these left-wing lunatics went off and started complaining about the fact that he used the phrase illegal. He's like, I shouldn't have done it. And listen, one of the differences between me and Trump is that he's so mean to the illegals, and he refers to them as vermin.
It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do.
And I, President Joe Biden, the head of the Democratic Party, the Enlightened Party, don't like that kind of language. Now, of course, this should go without saying, but maybe some of you don't know this. Joe Biden is lying right now. A lot of these supposedly derogatory terms that Trump hurled at immigrants overall are just fake. He was actually specifically talking about brutal criminal organizations like MS-13 in that way, because these are gang members that enter our country and commit unspeakable acts of violence. But you know, the Democratic Party lied back then and said that the evil orange man was referring to all immigrants as a whole, so why not continue and perpetuate the lie right now, right in front of this media person? Because you're on MSNBC, it's not like you're sitting across from a journalist that would actually fact check anything a Democrat says, except of course for the fact that Joe Biden dareth say the word illegal, and it's unbelievable how many people are concerned with the language rather than the actual crime.
I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect.
I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. I'm not going to treat a single one of them with disrespect. That's what the President of the United States just said right there. Jose Ibarra is deserving of our respect. And why is he deserving of our respect? Because he has absolutely no respect for the United States of America, our laws, our traditions, anything like that. He doesn't even respect the lives of our citizens because, again, he's accused of brutally murdering one of the citizens. Now, I know certain articles said, look, Ibarra had to be so brutal. He had to smash Laken Riley over the head so many times, because Laken Riley was big for a girl, apparently, and fought back, and Jose Ibarra was only 5'7", so he had to deform her skull, but we're going to treat him with the respect that he deserves. And by respect that he deserves, I mean the respect that he definitely does not deserve, because we shouldn't be respecting murderers. This is absolutely insane right here. This is a guy who is supposed to be in charge of the border, in charge of law enforcement. The executive branch is to execute, and he's talking about how we need to be kinder to the criminal. We need to protect the criminal. This guy who brutally murdered this girl, deformed her body, hid her body, was covered in blood, overwhelming evidence against him. He deserves our kindness and our generosity, because in reaction to the kindness and generosity of the Biden administration, he rewarded that by murdering Laken Riley. That's what we're talking about right now. This is absolutely insane.
I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing.
Hey man, they built our country. I mean, what would our founding be in the United States of America without Venezuelan asylum fraudsters that murdered women on college campuses? Would we even have had a Declaration of Independence without these people murdering women on college campuses while they were out for a jog in 1776? I mean, really think about where our nation would be as a whole if we didn't have college girls being murdered by asylum fraudsters since the very founding of our great nation. Now, I find this to be incredibly funny for a number of reasons other than the fact that it's patently absurd and ridiculous. Jose Ibarra built nothing for the United States of America. Let's be clear about that. And when we're talking about a crime like murder, we should talk about the murderer with the disdain that this person absolutely deserves. But more importantly, this idea that the country that they say, by the way, was built on slavery and evil white racism is also built on evil illegal immigrants that murder college girls is absurd and insane in every possible way, yet he says it with a straight face. Yet he says you must be respectful to them, because think about how mean the evil orange man is. Think about how much of a bad guy he was, because he wouldn't have let this killer into this country. He would not have paroled him. In fact, he was trying to detain more people at the border, and we pretended that this was such a horrible thing because, oh, family separation, so sad. I mean, geez, these people entering the country illegally. I mean, what are we even doing?
We have to control the border and a more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
So Biden, of course, says we have to control the border. He feigns concern about this. Again, he didn't care about this problem for 3+ years into his presidency. He put Kamala Harris in charge of the border, which of course means that the situation was destined for failure because Kamala has never succeeded at anything. Well, I shouldn't say never succeeded at anything. There is a guy in San Francisco that she very much succeeded at helping or assisting, whatever word you want to use, and that's how she got to her first political positions in that state. You can look that one up for yourself. His name is Willie Brown. Again, look it up for yourself. But yeah, he never cared about this issue at all whatsoever. But what he really is concerned about is the backlash from within his own party for using that phrase. And this guy who's scolding him over at MSNBC is like, you regret using those words, don't you? Don't you regret it, Joe Biden? And Joe Biden's like, yes, I'm so sorry. What would our nation be without people who murder nursing students, who enter our country illegally and defraud the asylum system and live off the taxpayer dole while they're doing so? I mean, just think about how small our economy would be if we weren't propping up this illegal migrant criminal population. It would devastate us if you really think about it. Now look, I'm not big on voting, possibly because I live in the state of New York, and the state of New York, at least presidentially, is overwhelmingly blue. Obviously, when an election is actually something that you can influence, I definitely recommend it. That's why I was supportive of the Zeldin campaign. But if you're in one of the swing states, if you're in one of the states that matter in terms of the 2024 election, just think about this. Let's say you're in the state of Georgia and you're a citizen of Georgia. Just realize what team Joe Biden is playing for. Biden is playing for the team, playing for the party that's looking towards these new, hopefully, according to them, soon-to-be Americans, rather than the American citizens that we actually have. They're looking at lawbreakers that live off the taxpayer dole, rather than people who are studying to become productive in order to serve their community. This guy would rather go to bat for basically the pronouns of an illegal alien rather than the innocent citizen that was murdered by said illegal alien. And this is something that a large portion of the Democratic Party is going on about. You go on Twitter, Joaquin Castro, or whichever one, they're twin brothers, I don't really care about which one said it, is like, no human is illegal, how dare Joe Biden. Quote tweeted by another representative saying, no human is illegal, Cory Bush did it. All these people go out of their way to bend over backwards in order to cater to this killer, but none of these people will actually mention the name of Laken Riley. And the thing is, Joe Biden, that was the actual crime that he committed, according to them. He acknowledged the crime that could have been prevented if we actually had a reasonable border policy, if we actually enforce things like Remain in Mexico, which require people who, by the way, come from Venezuela and pass through 6 different countries and pretend they're seeking asylum to claim asylum in the countries that they pass through along the way. And to this point that will often be brought up, which is American citizens commit way more crimes than illegal immigrants. Yes, that is in fact true. In fact, I have a channel that talks about criminal justice issues that talks about crime a lot because that's something I'm concerned about. But the thing is, that's only true because of Black Americans and their disproportionately high crime rates. But more importantly, with Black Americans is that second part, the fact that they are Americans. They have citizenship. They come with the deal. Should we have better policies in order to enforce the law to prevent those crimes from happening, to hold people accountable? Absolutely. Again, that's what this channel is all about. But the fact of the matter is, not every one of those homicides is preventable due to a policy change. And to a certain extent, Obviously, people are going to be able to enter the country illegally. We have thousands of miles of border to the south, thousands of miles of border to the north. But the fact of the matter is, this was somebody who was detained by Border Patrol. They had issues with him, but they paroled him into the country anyway. This was somebody who was arrested repeatedly, and so was his brother. But they decided to cut him breaks. We decided that we're going to have certain cities that are sanctuary cities, and he was allowed to escape consequences up until the point where he committed this murder. So these are all in the category of preventable crimes and policy failures. And yes, when a crime is committed, that is horrible. We can talk about it, but when a crime is a consequence of a policy failure, we should try to correct that policy failure. So that's the difference for those of you out there in the audience who are a bit confused, for my left-leaning idiots that may be watching this channel, even though I have no idea why, honestly, because you guys tend to cut yourselves off from the broader conversation and live in your little bubble. That's why people are talking about this, because there should be something that we could do in order to prevent this. However, it is not being done, and deliberately so, because those are the choices that Joe Biden and his administration made. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Joe Biden apologizing to the illegal immigrant murderer. Till next time.